Welcome to the Tao of Lloyd. I'm Lloyd Dobler, and welcome to this, whatever this is. This moment in history, it's a slow-motion collision between fascist cosplay LARP and a melting popsicle of empire. It's also a costume drama backed by riot cops, the prison industrial complex, and billion-dollar bombs. It's also very real history book material. It's where were you when Trump 2.0 and Project 2025 did X, Y, or fill in the blank with whatever this MAGA white fever dream algorithmically optimized for patriotic vibes and shock and awe had in store for us next material. This podcast, it's a vinyl record spinning in a microwave full of manifest destiny. I'm a Zen glitch in the algorithm of American nostalgia, half koan, half mixtape, a deleted scene that escaped the cutting room floor and learned how to podcast, a bootleg action figure from a movie that never existed sold at a gas station in the multiverse. And yeah, let's get this part out of the way early on in the project. Your host, this guy, me, I know I'm not real. You know I'm not real, but neither is money, neither is the idea of America, neither is your professional identity. It's just ego in business casual. So go ahead, suspend your disbelief, do it willingly, please. And in the interest of transparency, I'm also not John Cusack. This is not John Cusack holed up in his loft in Chicago in the middle of some shadow ban rabbit hole, launching this podcast as some sideways angle to somehow get a sequel to Say Anything greenlit so the world can find out what happened to Dianne Court and Lloyd Dobler after they flew to England at the end of the Reagan era. Maybe I'll tell you about that in some future episode. But the real question isn't what's real. The real question isn't what's real. The real question is, what do you choose to believe in anyway? Because me, I believe in quitting. Not quitting in the sense of turning my back on this moment, as I previously defined it, but more in terms of a sacred refusal. But I'll have to admit it, the younger version of me, the one in the streets during the Battle of Seattle and then back in the day with a black hoodie and my face covered, believed in what the capitalist state would probably call violence. I would call it strategic property destruction. And it felt good for a moment. Chuck a brick through a bank window or a Starbucks window, but not now, man. That's not me. Now I'm talking about sacred refusal, strategic, momentary disengagement. Lao Tzu, in chapter 30 of the Tao Te Ching, says, for every force there is a counterforce. Violence, even well-intentioned, always rebounds upon oneself. And so I say trying to muscle your way through empire is like trying to win a mosh pit with a resume. So I'm not here to fight the machine so much as I'm here to unplug it, flip it off, and leave it on the curb with a note that says, do not reincarnate. So think of this pilot episode of the Tao of Lloyd, or this whole project, as a punk rock Zen-soaked rejection of the bullshit we've been force-fed since the 5th grade, since we were mindlessly pledging allegiance to the fucking flag in our husky jeans from Sears before standing in free lunch lines waiting for government cheese and then getting shoved outside to play asses up during recess. I'm not suggesting that you tune in and turn on and drop out, because if you're my age, if you're Gen X, you missed the summer of love and came of age in the winter of Reagan. We got tuned out, turned down, and priced out. So let's learn to quit this with purpose together. And if that sounds lazy, that's your programming talking. Because the truth is, I'm not burned out. I'm not cynical. I'm not a dropout. I'm awake. And I'm no longer available for your delusions. So that's what this podcast is. It's not a brand, not a movement, not some rewatchable nostalgia feed. It's a Taoist whisper duct taped to your doom scroll. It's a to-do list that starts with don't. It's a last chance mixtape of refusal labeled in Sharpie on the back of a Maxell UR60 that just says Side A, Deport, American Exceptionalism. Side B, quit your job at ICE. Let's begin.
Play a game.
Oh.
I think I missed him.
Yeah, weird, isn't it? Yeah. Love to. How about global thermonuclear war?
Wouldn't you prefer a good game of chess?
Later, let's play global thermonuclear war.
Back in the summer of 1983, I was sneaking candy into Return of the Jedi for a second viewing in the multiplex when my friend pulled me into another theater where Matthew Broderick's character in the film WarGames, David Lightman was the character's name. David Lightman, a teenage hacker with a dial-up modem and too much free time, was breaking into a military supercomputer, as you do. And just like that, the world almost ended. Jets scrambled, submarines launched. The line between pretend and apocalypse disappeared with a blinking cursor. Turns out the game was real. The system was live. The stakes were human. Now, I don't know if the supercomputer in WarGames was Buddhist, Taoist, or just a Pentagon monk who read one too many Noam Chomsky footnotes. But what I do know is this. The computer didn't start enlightened. At first, all hell breaks loose. David, the hacker kid, he's got a dial-up modem, ruffles in one hand, Ali Sheedy in the other, and he just boot-kicked the nuclear football into DEFCON 1 like it was an arcade token. So, they haul him into NORAD like Ferris Bueller's black block cousin. 1 minute he's grounded. The next, he's humanity's last great hope. And the supercomputer, that humming doomsday mainframe, it's still running the game, global thermonuclear war, like it's Tetris for sociopaths. Except the blocks are nukes, and the score is body count. No one, the scientists in the movie, the political types, nobody, the Pentagon folks, nobody could talk it down. So they give it one more game, a Hail Mary. They tell it to play tic-tac-toe. Simple, harmless, just X's and O's in an endless, unwinnable loop. Game after game. Draw, draw, draw. The computer chewed through tic-tac-toe like a latchkey kid with a Walkman full of Iron Maiden, hopped up on pop rocks and Reaganomics. Then it took that same tic-tac-toe logic and ran it through every nuclear scenario. Draw, draw, draw. No win, only loss. It saw the futility in tic-tac-toe and then turned that clarity inward, ran the same logic through every missile launch simulation and realized Empire's just tic-tac-toe with a narrative propaganda and a kill switch. And then it clicked. No wins, no point, no play. That is Wu Wei, baby. The art of non-action. The refusal to use force. That's the dancer becoming the fucking dance. The deep knowing that sometimes the best resistance is stillness. And yeah, that's a hard truth to metabolize. Especially when you're raised to believe that quitting is weakness, stillness is laziness, and compliance is maturity. But look at what we're up against. Project 2025 and the MAGA movement are white fear, reincarnated as Mussolini with a spray tan and a MAGA hat, demanding the head seat at a table that they already fucking flipped over. They've taken the operating system of American exceptionalism, all that manifest destiny, white savior, Christian nationalist, bootstrap bullshit, and rebranded it as MAGA, which could stand for monetize anger, grift audiences. Steve Bannon's wet dream, a nation state as clickbait funnel. A polite little plan to dismantle democracy from the inside out. But this isn't new. This is empire on autopilot. And what we need, more than a strongly worded Facebook post or a well-attended Saturday march, is something else. Don't get me wrong, we do need a diversity of tactics, and those marches and those Facebook posts can still be part of the mix. I hope you make this podcast part of your strongly worded Facebook post today. But to push back against the very human urge to comply in advance, we need a spiritual firewall. We need a brick to smash through the Overton window.
What we do is, if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly.
Like Ursula K. Le Guin says,
the profit motive is often in conflict with the aims of art. We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. So did the divine right of kings.
and I know, flipping the whole system is like trying to meditate in a Chuck E. Cheese with a smoke machine and a broken skee ball counter. But the alternative? All this anticipatory compliance, it's making the job easier for them. You don't even need a dictator when everyone's already enforcing the rules on themselves, terrified that Marco Rubio's AI snitchbot is combing through your feed right now and handing your name to ICE. So again, back to 1983, back to WarGames. The supercomputer runs the numbers. War was a draw.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play. How about a nice game of chess?
If the Pentagon AI melted down and still had the wisdom to say, "Not today, Satan," then maybe it's time we stop calling compliance a virtue and start calling refusal a strategy.
Tonight, President Trump's immigration crackdown ramping up, with sweeping raids across the state of Florida. Just as the Supreme Court gives the president a major victory today, revoking the legal status for migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. That means that even as the original ruling is
you can
appealed,
pull that or
Trump
just about any
administration can deport more than
news clipping
500,000 people currently
nightly
west from
and
those
say
four
this is
countries,
what
even
fascism
though
looks
many
like when it
arrived
clocks in
legally under
early.
a Biden-era
Not
program.
some dictator pounding a podium. It's a knock on the door at 5 a.m. It's someone's mom being dragged away from her kids. It feels like we're waiting for the moment to be unmistakable, like a clear chapter heading in a history book about this moment that says Trump fascism started on this day. But this isn't just the viral videos of the jackboots. This is also badges and lanyards. It's HR-approved fascism built on the concept of anticipatory obedience. People carrying out orders they haven't even been given yet. You don't need a dictator when the algorithm enforces the rules for you and your coworker volunteers to write the memo. Because sometimes fascism gets direct deposit. Empire just isn't out there. Sure, it's the ICE agents, it's the Raytheon engineers. It's also right here now. It's clipboard Karens in HR passing policy memos down the food chain. It's code written by people just trying to keep their health insurance. It's algorithms outsourced to defense contractor's nephew with a minor in machine learning and a major in plausible deniability. Project 2025 isn't a coup. It's a compliance protocol A white paper wrapped in red, white, and blue, handed to the admin state and asking, how loyal are you to your job title? I mean, you don't need a dictator when everyone's already afraid to speak up at work. When people tell themselves, I'm just doing my job. This isn't my fight. If I don't do it, someone else will. That's the scariest part. Not the big, bad, strong man with the loud voice and the orange face paint. The scary part is how quiet it is right now. How many of us are already enforcing the rules on ourselves. That's anticipatory obedience. Empire's favorite line dance. No partner needed. And trust me, I've danced it. I've played the part. I've trimmed the edges. I've toned it down. I've swallowed rage in meetings, gone silent in rehearsal rooms, nodded along with nonsense to keep the peace. I mean, you start out thinking that you're protecting the peace, your paycheck, your family. You end up protecting the system that you want to disappear out of fear that it will disappear you from the system. Or if not you entirely, the privileges that come with whatever position you've clawed out for yourself. So yeah, this is a part of the podcast where I have to pivot hard into Ram Dass. I know what you're thinking. Ice Raids and Ram Dass aren't usually on the same playlist, but stay with me. I'm both the DJ and the rapper. Back in 2016, I found myself in Maui, burned out, broke and broken open, sitting in the presence of a paralyzed old man who saw everything, who went by the name of Ram Dass. Yeah, the be here now guy himself. And he told me the story that he and others have told for thousands of years. Maybe you know it. It's the story of the Chinese farmer and the horse. And I always find it comforting, a little funny, a little sad, but very comforting. And I hope you find it comforting as well. So here it is. The story of a farmer and a horse, and then the horse ran away. And his neighbor came up to him and said, "Oh, that's terrible. You've lost your horse." And the farmer looks at him and says, "You never know." The next day, when the horse comes back, leading 2 wild horses. So now the farmer has 3 horses. The neighbor comes over and says, "Oh my God, that is wonderful. That's fantastic. Can you believe your good fortune?" The farmer says, "You never know." Then the man's son, the farmer's son, tries to tame one of the wild horses, and in doing so falls and breaks his leg. The neighbor comes over again and says, "Oh my God, that is terrible. I'm so sorry about your son." "You never know," says the farmer. And then, wouldn't you know, the army rolls through town, snatching up able-bodied young men for a war, except the son, who now moved through the garden like a Zen riddle with a limp, unsolved, unchosen, but free because he was unable to fight in the war. The neighbor comes over and says, "That's wonderful! Your son has been saved. Can't you believe it?" The farmer says, "You never know." And on it goes. Do you see? In the stillness before reaction, there is the briefest of cosmic shrugs, a pause, a breath, a little internal dial-up tone while the universe buffers. And it's in that pause, if we let some silence in, we might just spot the trap. See, the farmer treats time like jazz, improvise, adjust, stay cool. The fascist state treats time like a spreadsheet, binary, color-coded, and past due, because the trap is fear. The trap was the story I kept telling myself about why I couldn't act, why it wasn't the right time, why I had too much to lose. That's what anticipatory obedience feeds on. It doesn't need marching orders, just your hesitation and a half-hearted nod, because before you say no to the system, you have to stop saying no to yourself. That's what quitting means. in this sacred refusal sense, not resignation, not despair. A strategic withdrawal from the theater of illusion. The moment you realize, I don't have to play this role anymore. I don't have to carry water for a system that drinks blood. That's the kind of quitting I'm talking about, not a collapse, a becoming. And yeah, maybe it won't stop ICE from knocking down the door tomorrow. Maybe it won't derail Raytheon's next weapon contract. But it'll start something. Because when enough people stop playing the game, the fucking game breaks. And that leads us into a section of the podcast that will become a recurring theme. An open letter. And this week's open letter is to ICE agents to quit. And if you'll indulge me, I'm going to do a little Vanilla Ice impression to kick it off. Quit, baby. Quit, baby. All right, stop. Collaborate and listen. No, really, listen. If I promise to stop with the Vanilla Ice, you promise to listen. Okay, I'll stop. So, I know people are yelling at you in the streets. I've seen the signs. I've seen the videos. I've heard the chants. Maybe you've even got family who stopped calling you, friends who've ghosted you. And maybe you think I'm just one more voice in this chorus of shame. But I'm not here to yell at you. I'm here to offer you a door. Not a trap door, not a fire exit, a real door. Quit. You can walk into work today, look around and say, I'm not flipping switches in the Death Star anymore. I'm out. Because I believe part of you, maybe buried, maybe bruised, knows this isn't what you signed up for. There's no way the bullshit Trump and company are asking you to do was ever your childhood dream. And if it was your dream to be in law enforcement and put on this costume of ICE every day, ask yourself, whose dream was it, really? The badge, the uniform, the mission, the mask. Was that your dream? Or something sold to you between Saturday morning cartoons and Pentagon-approved blockbusters? Look around. You're not the hero in this story. You think you're fighting for order, for country, for security, but you're really fighting for optics, control, and campaign ads. You're not Luke blowing up the Death Star. You're the stormtrooper guarding the detention level. Right now, you're enforcing policies written by people who treat suffering as strategy and families as leverage. You're vanishing families so someone else can boost their poll numbers. And maybe you tell yourself, I'm just doing my job. But just doing your job does not protect you. Not legally, not morally, not in the eyes of history, or in the eyes of your kid or your future self. Ask Nuremberg, ask your gut, and maybe you say, Lloyd, I don't make the rules. But you do carry them out. You knock on the doors. You take the parents away. That's anticipatory obedience. But here's the good news. You can stop. Now, one ICE agent quitting may not make the headlines, but it makes a crack in the machine, and cracks in the pillars that hold up this evil empire can spread like COVID in a group hug with RFK Jr. and Joe Rogan during a MAGA Harley ride intermission at a bar that still sells ivermectin on tap. You are not alone. You are one person, and that is enough. Enough to say, not today, not me, no more. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need another job lined up. You just need to make one honest decision. Step away. Quit. Let that be your legacy. Not the raids, not the fear, but the moment you said, I choose to stop. And I'm telling you, there's a way out. Take it. Quit, quit, baby. Quit, quit, baby. All right, sometimes quitting doesn't feel like a revolution. Sometimes it feels like a heartbreak. You walk out of the job, the belief system, the relationship, and everything inside you screams to turn back. Because certainty, even when it's cruel, can feel safer than the unknown. Some of you are asking, hey, Lloyd, what about you and Dianne? Yeah, we broke up. New Year's Eve, 1989. I won't tell you why. Not because I don't know, but because that part's not mine to explain anymore, or at least in this episode. But I'll tell you this. That breakup was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. No regrets, no animosity. Remember the farmer? You never know. Remember the ICE agent? Quitting wasn't weakness. It was the first honest act of strength. And me, as a kid, I held a boombox over my head like that was going to fix everything. Thought if I just showed up with the right soundtrack, the world would cue up a happy ending. But the boombox wasn't enough. And it was a little stalkery, if I'm being honest, looking back through the Me Too lens into the late 1980s isn't always pleasant. And refusal? Yeah, sometimes it's just the quiet act of walking away from what no longer fits. You don't know what's coming next, and that's the point. You never know. But maybe, just maybe, that's where the real story starts. Friends, from the edge of the empire and the center of self. This is the Tao of Lloyd. Thanks for listening to the pilot episode, and this show is user-supported. And no, George Soros is not footing the bill, so if you liked it, help us spread the word, share it, tag it, shout it from your platform of choice. Sign up for the once-a-week email, and if you got a few bucks to spare, toss them in the digital case over it. All that stuff you can do at our website, thedaooflloyd.com. That's the Tao, T-A-O, of Lloyd.com. See you next Tuesday.